Ameera Shah joining us now. She's a promoter and executive chairperson at Metropolis Healthcare. Ameera, very good morning to you.
Morning to you.
Season's greetings. Of course, we love having you here at NDTV Profit, so thank you for coming in. Let's start with exactly that point. The growth target that you've set for FY25 is fairly ambitious, coming on the back of, rapid expansion. How do you see that panning out, and do you think that those targets are on track?
No, we are certainly on track. If you actually look at it, the guidance that we had sort of given for FY24-25 was a growth of approximately 13% and I think we are pretty comfortable, that we'll get approximately there. We had also guided for a EBITDA margin of approximately 25%, and we also believe that we'll be there at the end of the year. We have added about 90 labs in the last 4 years and about 2,000 centers. And if you actually look at it, the current dilution in the EBITDA is about 1%, 1.1% because of the new labs that we've started, which obviously takes some time to mature. So naturally, the EBITDA percentage, we believe, should keep moving upwards as we move along and as we focus more on collection center building in the next 3 years rather than expansion of labs. So we are quite comfortable about where we are from a financial metrics basis, and obviously as a company, we're only getting stronger year by year.
So just on that last point of EBITDA margins, Ameera Shah, you're rightly saying that as you expand, there will be some dilution. Now, having said that, what is the kind of timeline where you can come back to a 28% EBITDA margin?
See, 28% was never the pre-COVID EBITDA margin. The pre-COVID EBITDA margin was actually close to 26%.
All right.
It's only during COVID that the EBITDA margins of organizations like us actually expanded for a very short time of 1 or 2 years. So I think it's very important that we look at what is important in today. Diagnostics accessibility in India has only covered ever 6% of Indians. So there's a huge runway for growth in terms of creating that availability of all across tier 3, tier 4 markets. So should we really focus our energies on getting customers more availability of services and a revenue growth, or should the focus be to keep maximizing margins? I think our choice is to sustainably grow margins at about 25-26%, but while keeping on pushing a faster growth on revenue. And as you'll see, compared to most of our peers, we are actually outpacing them on the revenue side.
Okay, so fair enough. I think your point is well taken that 28% was an unusual kind of a bump up that we saw in COVID. 25 to 26% is, the sort of normalized margin category that you will see. And will this now be bumped up with more expansion in tier 3 cities? Is that now the goal for the new year?
No, absolutely. As we move from FY25-26 into the next 2-3 years, like I mentioned, we would be now not expanding labs at the same rapid pace that we have done in the last 4 years. We pretty much doubled or added 50% of our lab capacity in 4 years' time, right? Which we had otherwise taken 10 years, sort of do. So obviously, as we now add it more sustainably and not at such an aggressive pace, automatically it will take us into deeper markets and we'll add more collection centers. That will actually feed the labs. And that's where really, which is much more asset light and doesn't dilute your margin.
What are the numbers in terms of collection centers that you want to add and service centers? And are you reviewing those targets which you've put out?
We've been adding about 500 net centers every year, approximately, I would say, for the last 4 years. My sense is that as we add less labs, we would be adding more number of centers. So we don't have a number yet, but we will certainly be trying to push the envelope and doing it more than 500.
Okay. More than 500 in FY25, is it?
FY26.
By FY26. All right. The other thing that I was keen to know is about the acquisition that you have done this year of TruHealth. Explain to us a little bit about the rationale, and are you looking at more inorganic growth?
So the acquisition of Core Diagnostics that we've done, that we've announced actually just this month, is really all about, it's the largest cancer testing lab in the country today. And with Metropolis's business, we really go on to be the leading player with end-to-end cancer testing from, there's no basic testing in cancer, but from all the early 8 stage to the very, very complicated cancer testing. And we'll be able to provide Indians everything possible that you need from a global perspective in India. So we are very excited about the fact that we can play such an important role in, as unfortunately cancer grows in India, we can play an important role for the patient as we grow. Yes, we do believe that this will be value accretive, margin accretive, EPS accretive, all in the next, a couple of years. As we know, acquisitions initially, may dilute slightly your margin, but if you're able to generate the profit as we're expecting to, we do believe this to be ROCE profitable and ROCE accretive in the next couple 2 to 3 years. So I think we're excited about that. On TruHealth, which is really our preventive healthcare packages line and bundled services line, it's been growing and the contribution is now close to about 15% of revenue. We do hope to take this closer to 20%.
Ameera, good morning. Neeraj here. You're looking lovely, dressed for the occasion. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Ameera, could a diagnostic, an average diagnostic lab or a congregation of diagnostic labs and therefore a diagnostic company look very different 5 years out from a perspective of the number of things that a lab will do then versus what it is doing right now, or allied services that could be added? Any thoughts there?
See, I think those of us who are looking to continue to build significantly in pathology, I think we'll have to continue to get deeper and deeper into different illnesses that are growing. So like oncology is one of them, neurology is the other disease area that is growing very fast globally. Mental health, as you know, is a big challenge. More and more diagnostics are being discovered, not just for things like Alzheimer's and dementia, but for strokes, for other kinds of serious neurological diseases. So I think one is to go deeper and deeper into therapeutic segments and really take the position of leadership and innovation and science in India. So that's one. The second thing that we are doing as Metropolis is actually to make our collection center sort of more diversified and not only offer pathology, but offer pathology, basic radiology, and even in some cases, consultations from, for your wellness packages, etc. From a nutrition perspective, from a wellness perspective. So the idea is to keep diversifying your services and offering, easy access to the patient, so that patients are able to really get better and take good care of themselves.
And Ameera, actually, me and Taman were just talking about it, but just trying to get this sense, right? This final question from my end. We often hear of patients having gone to, for lack of a better word, an obscure diagnostic lab because cost concerns, done a report, and then doctors telling them that, okay, can you go to one of the reputed ones and get it done? Now, you are at the other end of the problem, right? Wherein you know that patients will come to you if they don't care about the cost. But if you want to reach out to patients who do care about the cost, like, how do you manage this? Because there is a natural pushback that let's not try and do that, because there will be people who will come to you because doctors will prescribe them to go to reputed labs, but you want to widen your reach as well, right? So how do you kind of marry the two?
Actually, Neeraj, what we find is that when we've done a survey of people and when we look at how they make their decisions on diagnostics, you'll be surprised. Cost is not even in the top 5. The number one priority for people has been convenience. Which is crazy because the assumption is that all labs are equal and the government is somewhere regulating the space and therefore the result will be the same from all. And in that context, let's go to the one that's most convenient. When people realize and we educate them that, hey, by the way, out of 300,000 labs in India, 99.9% are not accredited or nobody's looking at it. And it's only the 0.1% that actually have accreditation. People actually realize and say, oh, I better go somewhere where I'm going to get a good quality report because my entire health depends on it. So what we find is that patients go to some place close to their home, sometimes get a wrong result, go to the doctor sends them then to a good lab. So our goal is therefore not to look at a cost as the goal, but to really look at convenience and how do you create more and more accessibility. If you have a Metropolis center close to you, you will actually most probably go there rather than going to an obscure lab, as you asked. And I just want to say one more thing around the costing. Most people go to a path lab once a year or maximum twice a year. Let me tell you, the usual cost per patient at a path lab is 600 rupees or 700 rupees. It is really not breaking anybody's bank twice a year to spend 600 to 700 rupees and you're spending maybe 1400 rupees for, in a year's time. It's very different from hospitals where you go in and you get a big bill of 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs, which potentially therefore could break your bank. So therefore, we don't find cost actually as a huge issue in pathology.
Just on that point, Ameera, and you're absolutely right where reputation counts, because I've seen this firsthand, and what you're describing, where people have gone and told to go back and get their lab reports from a better place. I think costing could be a problem, and I'm just asking you from the competitive landscape. There are now a lot of brands out there which are also reputed and are actively pursuing customers to go and do lab reports that they don't necessarily need, because they're positioning them as packages. And they're saying, we'll come to your house, in this much money we will do some 100 odd tests and you will get these lab reports done. So people are ending up doing tests they don't need. It is being sold very aggressively and marketed very aggressively. I'm just wondering how you see that landscape, and do you think Metropolis is on the fear of maybe losing out newer customers because of this?
See, there are two different spaces this operates in. The brands you're talking about, which may appear as very well-reputed brands in other spaces of life, right? In other industries, for example, who've come into healthcare or into diagnostics that people may recognize. A consumer may feel, oh, this is a trusted brand, I can go with it. But you have to remember that just because somebody is doing exceptionally well in a shampoo or a soap or a salt or a water or whatever it is, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be super successful in diagnostics or in healthcare, right? Number one. What happens with consumers is when they make their own decisions on wellness. And that's fine, right? Because you are choosing your own brand based on what you want when you're perfectly well. But you also have to remember, when you're perfectly well, if the player you go with, you go and buy a test from somebody who's not being extremely precise. And most people think, 19-20 mein kya hai yaar? If my result is aage piche 10%, it doesn't matter. And what people don't realize is pathology is a precision game. 195 is very different from a 201. That actually determines whether you're negative or positive, abnormal or normal on a cholesterol. So precision is very critical. But when they finally go to the doctor with a symptom when they are unwell, even though the consumer may not have the knowledge to differentiate between sort of known brands in other areas or well-known brands in pathology, the doctor very clearly knows the difference. And the doctor is able to guide them and say, look, this is okay for your wellness package, but for illness, when it's something that really matters in your life, you will have to go somewhere.
Just one last question before we let you go, Ameera. Are you looking at price hikes in the new year?
Traditionally, we've always looked at pricing once a year or once in 2 years. We did a price increase in Jan 24. We are still contemplating whether or not to do a price hike in 25. I don't think we have a call on that yet. So I'll have to keep that open for now.
It is a possibility that we could see. Thank you so much, Ameera Shah, and season's greetings to you from all of us here.
You too.
Okay.